Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I see that you are still kind of trickling into the meeting, so we will get started very, very shortly. If you could just share with us, while we wait for everyone to join, where are you from? Where are you based? Where in the world are you? We'd love to hear from you from wherever you are connecting. Buenos Aires, Argentina, welcome. Zurich in Switzerland, Georgia, Bangalore, India, Montevideo, Uruguay, Guatemala, Jordan, US, Kuwait, Paris, Istanbul, Vancouver, US, Cairo, Sweden, UK, Turkey, more from Argentina, more from Georgia, Ghana. Great. This is a truly global convening here. We're very excited. France, Kosovo, Italy, Brazil, UAE. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As we are waiting for everyone to trickle in, we'll get started. We have somebody from Iceland as well. Welcome. My name is Anna Felt. I'm the manager of the We Empower G7 program. As part of the program, together with the European Union, ILO, and UN Women, we are organizing discussions, event, multi-stakeholder dialogues on topics that are particularly relevant to gender equality and women's empowerment. We are also inviting our signatories of the Women's Empowerment Principles to these convenings, and our main focus of this program is on the private sector to spark dialogues, understand what's happening in the market, and foster capacity building, exchange of knowledge, and what works and what doesn't. Specifically with the private sector, we're focusing on what the government does to foster an enabling environment so that the private sector can thrive. We are focusing on what other actors can do to also align with the women's empowerment principles so that we can have a great ecosystem that really fosters gender equality and women's empowerment. Today, we have a very exciting topic that we're going to discuss about Parentsmart Employers. And it probably doesn't come as a surprise. We've had 2 discussions before, one in October 2016, and we'll share the links for those that are curious to listen to those recordings. And yes, this one will be recorded too. And we had one in September 2019. So we are having these check-ins on this topic from time to time, but we have also developed, as part of our EU-funded program, different resources on parenting. We have, and I think Diana will share this in the chat box, also what governments have been doing to really foster parental leave, both for mothers and fathers, particularly in the G7 region. We also have resources, what companies been doing to foster this, as well as what we can do around childcare. However, as we will hear from Tina Bruno today, it is not only about parents, it's about all of us and how we bring along the skills that and the competencies we developed at home to the workplace and vice versa, and how we can all benefit from those skills developments. I understand also from the diverse audience today from all over the world that our situation vis-a-vis COVID might be quite different. In New York, where I'm based, we are so-called back to normal, even though we are still working from home. But I understand in many other countries there are struggles, and our hearts are out for you and hope that everything will resolve itself. But it also comes with a lot of challenges when it comes to parenting, childcare, and all of this that we will talk today. So we find it a very timely topic to bring it back today with Tina Bruno and Katarina Mattsson from Volvo. But before we do so, let me just go over the agenda today. We will have first an introduction to this concept, Parentsmart at Work perspective from Tina, who is an organizational consultant, CEO and founder of this concept, based in Sweden. And then we will have a conversation between Tina and Katarina Mattsson from Volvo. She's a senior expert on culture and diversity, to really hear what Volvo has been doing through this concept and the achievement that has been done. Then you will have an opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A, and I see there's already one question for us. And then we'll have a closing. We'll have a few polls during the session, but before we get started with listening to Tina, I would just alert you to the fact that I'm sure you're all aware after more than a year with a lot of Zoom meetings, but in the top right corner, there's a view, and you can change the view to speaker view or gallery view so that you see the speaker in a larger video. We will record it, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll put it on the website. So you'll find it under webs.org/resources afterwards. But I think we will get started. So I have one more question before I hand it over to Tina. And I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. From your perspective, what is in it for employers to support working parents? Very curious to hear your views on this before we hear from Tina and Katarina today. Retaining top talent, better employee engagement, happier employees and better overall performance, parental leave, being inclusive, improved reputation, innovation. I think you can relate to many of those, Tina and Katarina. So as we hear from our participants today, gender equality, yes. I will hand it over to you, Tina, to take us through this concept of Parentsmart Employers. Over to you, Tina. Productivity improvement, retention. You're muted, so if you could unmute.
Yes.
Excellent, very good. I think we have a very smart group of people joining us today. They have great inputs to the to this question on what's in it for employers, and also curious to hear Katarina talk about it later as well, and how Volvo has benefited from being Parentsmart. So Tina, are you sharing your screen?
No, I'm here.
Very good. Okay, yeah. Over to you.
Thank you. So, hi everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I'm in Täby, Stockholm here. It's sunny and warm finally. And to follow up this topic for the third time with this group, I would like to start to say that never before has the combination of work with private life, with family, with parenting been so high on the agenda, so relevant for so many families, so many companies in so many countries as the last year during the pandemic, in so many places at once, at the same time. And I've been reflecting a lot of this time we go into now, that now we actually have an opportunity to keep this focus of how to combine work with family in smart ways, and also highlight the wins with it too, even though many struggle still. So wins for both families, for employers, and for societies. And many employers now boost their support for resilience, for well-being, for social sustainability in different ways, not the least for working parents, but for all. And we're going to talk to one of those employers after this, the Volvo Cars, and they, of course, don't do this just because of the pandemic, but it happened to be a huge launch during this period. As Anna said, this is something, and let's take that from the beginning. It's not only concerning parents. It's a large group in most companies and organizations. So what I normally say that if we want to create a more inclusive work life and life for all, it's good to focus on a group which is rather large in many workplaces, to develop the norms, attitudes, and support that may create an inclusive and gender equal workplace for all and benefit all. So it's not about discriminating non-parents, but lots of parents and many know children, but it's about a parenting that is about leadership. I'll come to that. So we all get that it's about caring for your employees when you support and as employer. And nobody should need to choose between work or family anywhere in the world. But how do, for example, private sector companies reason in their management groups and so on when they talk about the return on investment they may need for those big investments made? How do they make sure that support is also used, that parents dare to take paternity leave, for example, when that is not the norm in a country, with a supporting manager promoting it? How can an employer engage managers on all levels, not only CEOs and HR directors in social media, but on all levels in the organization, to really not only know, but also truly believe in the wins of promoting that employees take parental leave and combine work with family all the way through their life? So how can they also be role models? Let's talk more about this. And I think that is one of the keys to the norm shifts needed in so many countries, and it can, with not so costly investments, more attitude changes, change the life for very many. So that is a topic of our inspiration session here today. And we will follow up with the more interactive, deeper sessions after summer, we hope. So I'll share my screen and tell you a little bit more about me myself. I'm a mother of 3. I always start with that. That's on top of my CV, and it should be for all parents, I think. I'm called thought leader, norm breaker. That's maybe because I've really tried to change mindsets around these topics for over a decade now. But I'm an economist, organizational consultant, and international lecturer promoting global exchange of experience. I work with global companies, organizations, and UN organizations to promote the development together faster. I'm founder of the Parentsmart at Work concept for employers, leaders, and employees. I wrote a book in 2010 about it. It will come in other languages now, and I'm CEO of the team here in Sweden. Föräldrasmart, that's Parentsmart in Swedish. So we engage in the development and exchange of experience between countries and companies for all to develop faster, I said. The focus of support to working parents has for a long time been has a long history in Sweden. Here are some photos. The one in the middle started the movement in 1970s. We have not only mothers, but also many fathers on the streets here, parental leave, paternity leave in Sweden. But now many countries have taken steps, huge steps to the last 10 years. And now the time is finally here where supporting parents and working parents has become like a fast-growing movement, we can see, regardless local history and culture. So lots of things are possible to do everywhere. Governments give financial support to both mothers and fathers taking parental leave in some countries, not all. And of course, that is very important, but there is also an increasing interest of exchanging experience about how to collaborate between employers and governments where the development hasn't come so far. Because how even government support in some countries, nothing will happen if, like we still see some examples of parents that can take paternity leave, for example, but are fear to lose their job if they use it. And again, that's mostly about attitudes among managers, internal attitudes in the companies. So during my first years discovering these areas in many different countries, some with extremely challenging local context, my goal has always been to never hear that it's utopia only possible in Sweden. So I really wanted to start with the things that are possible to discuss everywhere and then adapt to local context. And one of those things is how parenting skills are useful at work. So that is the focus that is possible to talk about and the starting point for our seminar. And as I said before, it has never been so relevant in so many countries right now. And many talk about learnings at home during the pandemic, but that's mostly about digital maturity and things like this. Not many think about the huge development that is going on in many homes, many of your homes maybe, if you have children yourself. So that leads us to the focus and the passion that has driven me as an entrepreneur for over a decade now, with never fading conviction, I would say, about one mindset that would change the lives for many and not so hard to spread. So we discuss new leadership skills needed. And as I said, compassion, trust, empathy, humility, delegation, team building. Is it really a new leadership needed now? Or is it more about finding new ways of identifying the skills and capacities and awareness that very many already carry and develop daily in their homes? But we don't think so much about it. Because all those skills here, together with lots of other skills, are exactly the leadership needed. And that is what's also developed when you become a parent. Not all parents develop all of this, of course, and I actually have a list of 70 skills in the book I wrote with examples, but something is always developed and trained when you become a parent. So my curiosity was, what if we start talking more about this connection? Because parenting skills make use at work everywhere in the world, no matter where you are. But what if we see it as one of the best management courses you can get, and start talking about it among other facts in return on investment for supportive working parents, and connect it to company vision and values, strategic goals and profitability and KPIs even. So I was curious about this and wanted to try to find ways to build an awareness of parenting as an asset to the organization, not a burden at work. So with this, as I said, I'm curious, still curious, and curious about you. I don't even see you, but I'm curious about how your thoughts got going when you heard this about the different skills that are developed when you are a parent or outside work. And if you don't have children, think of a situation, maybe you're training a football team, maybe you're working with other organizations or things, developing skills outside work. But most of all, know a kid, and being with children is also a way of developing skills that are needed in parenting at home, but also in leadership, as I said. And I want to emphasize that it's also about this self-leadership needed now to parent ourselves, actually, with the compassion and patience and trust we need in ourselves. So I see that you already got going. Which parenting skill do you think is most useful at work? Empathy is high here, and you can scroll because there are others that you may not see on your screen. So please scroll so you see all the options. Empathy, patience, prioritization. Prioritization is always high. Empathy is winning this one, I think. Patience. Great. Thank you so much. Let's see if we have some more votes here. Delegation and creativity. Delegation is actually something very much trained when you have teenagers, as I have at home now. And patience. All right. Just a few seconds more. All right, let's end this poll. Great. So empathy was on top, and we had patience at number 2 and prioritization number 3. Thank you very much, all. And just please also just check this when you meet parents next time, or have to ask this question, because it really is interesting to hear the. So, all right, let's continue. This made me curious around 12 years ago, when my kids were small like this. They are now 15, 18, and 20. I posed 2 questions. And one of them was, how does parenting develop leadership? And the other one was about employers. But this first question, actually, I posed it to 100 managers with kids. And within a week, I got 80 amazing stories back, and I gathered them in a book in 2010 with a model developed for how to work with this. And then I asked employers, and I still do, how can employers benefit and get ROI with support to working parents? This is one of the things, competence development, but there are many other things too. So as I said, this is nothing only relevant here in the Nordics. Parenting adds value at work everywhere. What I call Parentsmart Employers, these are the ones who know it and show it, and getting the ROI has double sense, as you understand. So let's go to the areas that companies, employers do support working parents in. Normally, there is lots of support done in what we call formal support, connected to time, money, routines, IT, much about giving, lots of costs involved sometimes. It's like meetings not before 9, after 3, paid parental leave, HR policies before or after parental leave, if they have such, IT solutions for remote working. But there is also another part which is called informal support. And that is what I would like to emphasize here, working with attitudes, behaviors, leadership, and role models. And that is with focus on wins and ROI, knowing what the company gets back. And working with both is what we call to be a Parentsmart employer, manager, or employee, aware of that both are needed, and to involve managers on all levels early. It's also important to do this all the way from the start through all stages of parenthood, even grandfathers, grandmothers, daily train skills useful at work. So the impact examples then. Well, I said return on investment, and I really like the term, I would like to call it return on inclusion, actually. If employers support working parents, there are lots of wins, and they can, starting with this point here, add to more gender equal, inclusive, sustainable societies, for example. And there are many companies and networks, big multinationals signing the SDGs that really could do something concrete with this topic for society issues. Themselves, they get a higher employee branding scores for attraction and retention, health and well-being among employees. It's also questions connected to PR, marketing, customers are interested, branding, innovation. We'll come more to this after. But it all starts with managers, as in most cases. And it's about modern leadership, to be an inclusive leader, to work in a sustainable way with focus on trust and to use all competence available. And that could then give employees who feel engagement not only while they work, but also when they are away on leave, which is a very crucial period when you don't know if you where you have your employees. So a contact during this period is also important. Self-esteem, loyalty, and pride, lots of things are on this list. Just a quick overview. And well, here is a picture with lots of logos and companies that you probably recognize, and maybe you work in some of these companies. There are so many companies supporting working parents in different ways, and employers invest sometimes very huge amounts in like pay parental leave, like Volvo Cars now, Schneider Electric, and many others here. We looked at some of the big companies like these ones a couple of years ago, just to see, because of course there are strategic decisions behind their policies and strategies, but it takes time to develop concrete cost-benefit proofs of the investments made. And that question we very often get, how can you prove it in figures and facts, economy? So even early, when many of these started, it wasn't easy to track and follow exactly how a support to working parents could affect many KPIs and the cost benefit analysis that they wanted to do. But they did it anyway. And we looked into this, and it was very interesting to understand that most of them actually were so convinced that it was the right thing to do because it would create a more inclusive work life, and it will impact positively on the company strategies and also financial figures at the end. And now there are many ways of following up, and they also see it as a question of values, who they want to be as an employer, how to be perceived, and also to maintain a healthy balance between work and family for all employees, of course. So to summarize, because we also did a study in Sweden 2 years ago among 250 employers here and asked them about top ROI examples. And most responded that the wins are getting more engaged employees with higher satisfaction during all stages of their lives, retention of competence, that they don't risk losing employees when they build a family, diversity and inclusion with increased gender equality, more women in leadership positions, and fathers taking leave, making it possible for women to go back to work. Attraction is often tough in the often tough war of talents, and increased health, as we talked about, implementing support and a culture that really leads to a more sustainable work life for all, not only parents. And not many, but some also mentioned positive impact for productivity and competitive advantages on the customer market. So there we could find real business goal connections. And I'll talk with Katarina a little bit after this about that. So it's important to lift role models. And I'll just share a short story here with you from a couple of years ago. The CEO at Munters by the time, a multinational company, he was quoted when he was CEO at Sandvik for a month. And we had done a workshop where he was listening to a large group of managers discussing the wins with supporting working parents and the skills developed. And he said like this after this session: we want to be an innovative company and know that diversity and a broad view on competence stimulates innovation. It's important for us to attract future talent and develop and keep the employees we have. From a profitability perspective, parents develop lots of skills free of charge for the company. So to be a Parentsmart company makes employees develop and grow. And when we help them combine work with family and see parenthood as an asset, their performance increases. We get lower employee turnover and positive effects on our profitability. And finally, to be a Parentsmart company is to be the future, encouraging time and close dialogue with children, our future customers and employees. I think that was so nice. But we, as I said, need to adapt to local circumstances, norms, culture, possibilities, and the power of local role models. Swedish examples can inspire, as I often say, but only local cases can affect local attitudes. And these are really needed now. And the things we do need to be in multinational companies, adapted to what can be done locally, what can be done globally, of course, both in informal and formal support. And to not only show things, but also really know why and prove. So it becomes not only return on investment, but return on inclusion. And I've been talking really quick because we have, I would tell you so much about this, and it's so inspiring to talk to Katarina now. But as a teaser and a start, this was all from me. And now we would like to ask you how Parentsmart your workplace is today, according to you. If you work somewhere, if you don't work somewhere, think of your latest workplace. How Parentsmart in terms of not only giving practical support, but also leader attitudes. And I'll explain 3 levels here. We have a level A. My workplace, my company understands it's important, but don't offer much support to working parents yet, and don't discuss the issue internally. Level B is companies where that ensure a family supportive workplace is on the agenda and gives some support to employed parents. Level C are the role model companies ensuring a family supportive workplace is high on the agenda and gives lots of support, clearly communicates wins with it, and have leaders promote it and act as role models. And then we also, of course, have an option where you can say that you don't know if you don't know. So now I'd like Diana to launch the next poll. Yes. So please, just top of mind, what is your feeling right now? Right now, we see that we have level B that is increasing fast. Where 33%, the third, think that it's important to have employers that understand it's important but don't offer much. 40% on level B and 20 on level C, role models. A few don't know. Continue a little bit more. So I'll give you 10 seconds more to just pop into in your answer if you want to, and then we'll share the results with you. Okay. So here we have it. Most of you work in workplaces, ensuring a family supported workplace is on the agenda and gives some support. Great. And then we have a couple of almost 20% that work in role model companies doing more than a little bit, and some of you work in companies. So we have not an even spread, but anyway, many companies have started doing things, and this is what we would like to see also, how this advancement goes from both level E to B and from B to C. So let's stop sharing results. I hope we save these, Diana, tonight. It's very interesting. So I'll hand over the floor to you, Anna. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Tina. We already have some really good questions in the Q&A, but I will keep them to the session after the conversation with Katarina. There is a few questions around parenting versus other care responsibilities of elderly, of other dependents. So if you have a chance to cover that in your conversation with Katarina, that might be good too. And I just wish that we had asked the same, we would have done the same poll in 2016. So we could have compared notes and see if we are making progress. I think we will dig into it, but I don't think we asked the same question. But to keep in mind for our future sessions, to see how we are progressing in the world on support to parents and other caretakers. So we are now introducing the next part of the meeting. Next slide, Diana. Where we have Tina, who will now discuss with Katarina Mattsson from Volvo Cars on their experience at Volvo. So I'll hand it over to the both of you. And welcome, Katarina.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you just stop screen sharing there, Anna. Great. So, hi, Katarina.
Hi, Tina.
Again. It's nice to see you again. And we have had very interesting dialogues the last year, mostly, about what you do in both in panels, but also between each other. And I chose you as the company I would like to discuss with here, because you have done a very interesting launch of supported working parents, which got a lot of attention this year, but many other companies do that too. So I would like to understand why. But I'm going to start, as I always do, and you know me, with the things that we talked about in the beginning, the skills. You are mother of 4 too. I mean, you have your bonus mother of your 2 extra kids too. So you have 4, right? What would you say are the skills, top 1, 2, 3 skills that you have developed during your parenting that are useful in your work and for Volvo Cars?
Thank you, Tina. Yes, I'm the mother of 2, and then I also have 2 fantastic bonus children. And of course, in the beginning, when they were small, it was really about, I think for me, presence. To actually be there in that moment and not just go on planning ahead and everything, because you learn from children that it's all about here and now, and that is really important sometimes. And then I also think that I developed quite good listening skills, because it's also about, in line with being present, you also have to listen, because you can sort of be present but not really listen. But children will very soon tell you, because they know if you're not there with them in their discussions. Then when we went from 2 children to 4 children, I think it was very much about planning. At one time I was trying, to fix dinner. So I had 4 different schedules of what the kids was given for lunch, and try then to plan to add something else for dinner that they didn't eat for lunch, with 4 different, So that, I put together some really nice schedules there for a time. But on top of that, I think that I'm still learning a lot from them the older they get. Now I have them as my sounding board, when I try to keep up to date, or when I want to discuss something with them, they are an excellent group, because they are not always, just a supporter. They are also very good at, come with constructive feedback, we can put it.
Honest. Yes. Yeah, and we also said to go over to the role that you have at Volvo Cars. You work with diversity and inclusion, and we also talked about, that is also something that really is very clear when you have children who very often are not very similar, and you need to adapt to different persons and see the wins with them. All right, so you did a huge launch here during the spring of paid parental leave and other things. And let's just go directly on the question that why did you get so much attention for this, when companies have done that before. We have like Spotify and Schneider Electric and Patagonia. Lots of companies have done that during years. So what was so special with your launch or your support?
Yeah, you can wonder about that actually, because just like you said, we are not unique in any way when it comes to what we offer, and the offer itself is we are offering then all our employees globally 24 weeks of paid parental leave with the pay is 80% of the base salary. What I do think is a little bit unique though is that we really decided that we didn't want to treat our employees differently. So of course we have the same offer for both hourly and salaried employees across the globe. But what I think also we did that was a little bit unique was the way that we communicated this. We had learned quite a lot from our pilot launch, which we did in our EMEA commercial operations 2 years ago, where we started this initiative. So we had some employees who had already experienced the benefits and the learnings of becoming a parent. And we did one launch that we really focused on our own employees sharing their stories. Yeah. And there were both many proud moments, of course, and proud fathers and mothers sharing their stories and what this has meant to them. But there were also stories, you know, about leaders that have been long in our company that reflected back and realizing that they would have wanted it to be differently if they could do it again. They missed out on being there with their children, and they realize now what they missed out on. So I think about having a very authentic and sincere dialogue around this. That is what created quite a lot of buzz, actually. And you know, I mentioned to you that we had one colleague from Turkey who posted a picture of his little newborn child, and that actually had 480,000 views on LinkedIn and, you know, thousands of likes. But I think that also tells something about the importance of this area.
Yeah. And the example you took, I think that is so important too, that you don't, I mean, if it's too late, if you have managers, and very often that is the case in top level management groups, that you have managers with children who are grown up. But I've seen many examples, both in Sweden, in Russia, in Japan, of managers who just, when they realize that if I would have thought in this way 20 years ago, I would have taken paternity leave. So please do, all fathers in the company. I mean, and that started a huge movement here at Ericsson and different countries, also of course at Volvo now. So that statement is also important, even though managers haven't taken parental leave themselves. So why? I mean, it's a huge investment, and admirable, of course, to support families when government support is not enough in some countries and so on. But you are still a for-profit enterprise. And how do you plan to follow up your investment over time? And what were the, I mentioned a couple of win areas and KPIs. How did you reason there?
I think that we have touched upon a few of them already, and we also saw them in the chat. Of course, it's about attracting talent. We are in a war of talent, you could say. We are transforming the automotive business into software tech business, and we really need the best talents out there. Talent retention, other things. But for us, it's also about a higher purpose, really, what we stand for as a company. We have always put pride in putting people first. We are a human-centric company, and we believe also that having this higher purpose, having these strong values, that is also what will attract talent in the future, but also that is important for us to be clear that this is what we stand for as a company. And we need to have a sustainable workforce. So from that respect, every employee in certain periods during their career and life needs to then feel that they can combine career and family. And we learned from a lot of discussions with, especially of our women, our talented women in many countries, they found that they had to choose, but also to tackle the stigma that many men feel that even if today already they have the opportunity and the possibility to take the parental leave, they don't dare to, or there's not the climate and culture in place at the workplace where it's allowed. So there's a lot of different reasons, but and I'm sure that this is a good investment. And you could also say that even not investing in this could be sort of a bad investment, because we will lose out on good people.
Yeah. And I mean, it will develop differently in different countries, of course. You will now track that and follow the impact. You want the cost to be as high as possible, right? You want people to use the paid parental leave.
Yes.
Yeah. So two bit maybe delicate questions. I pose them directly. You don't even know them in advance here. How about all those who don't become parents? You know, I talked about that this is a way of showing a mindset that we want to have to make use of all competence available and work-life balance support for all. But how do you reason about that? And have you met any questions?
Yes, we have met questions. You could also say that in a way, this opens up possibilities for others, because if you now can have the time to take 6 months off, in some countries like Sweden, you can take more months off, then you have a vacancy. And someone who would like to try something new, to develop further, will get a good opportunity. That's one good thing, I think. Then, of course, there are many more things that we would like to do to improve for everybody in the company, but you can only take one project or one new policy at a time. So, of course, it doesn't stop with this for us. We are now looking into what should we do and do we want to do next?
Yeah.
So there's always more to it. But I think that you can see quite a lot of different opportunities, not only for the ones who have the opportunity to become parents in one way or another, but also for others when this happens in an organization.
That is so important, Katarina. And we actually have been talking to, for example, Telia had also the diversity inclusion manager telling the similar example last week at a webinar that it could be a possibility for others to try leadership positions and so on without recruiting somebody when people go on parental leave. So that's interesting. And I also want to highlight that what Anna said with care for elderly people, care for others. I know we have at the last session we had Schneider Electric. They're also their diversity inclusion manager, Dina, talking about how they support leave in different ways. And that is also interesting to see how that could be something that you could connect this to, I guess, because leave for caring for elderly family members, for sick family members, things. Have you started thinking about that too?
We have discussions ongoing, definitely, in many different areas, yes.
Yeah. And I would like one final, because you told me a story once that, because sometimes people think it's a bit provoking almost when I say that this can affect business goals, and but I believe it can. I mean, business goals for some companies like you would be selling more cars and earning more money. But in your case, actually, you had an example that it could affect that. Couldn't you tell that short anecdote as a...
Absolutely. When we first launched it in our EMEA commercial operations region, there was actually a man coming into a car dealership in Switzerland and telling the salesperson there that, well, my wife heard about this great parental leave offer you have, and she said, now we really need to buy a Volvo. So yes, you could even say that we will sell more cars on doing things like this.
And all the children things that you sell together with the cars, right?
Exactly.
All right. So now it's from word to action, Katarina. We're going to follow your development. And now, I mean, we don't want only to have CEOs and HR directors in social medias convinced about the wins. We want to have managers, leaders on all levels, promoting, acting as role models. How do you think that could be done? I mean, you're a huge company, lots of leaders, but I mean, every leader needs to, it shouldn't be something depending on what manager you have.
No.
You dare to take parental leave.
No, of course, but this is a learning journey, and in some countries it will go faster, and in some countries it will take a longer time, because it's also about the perception from the outside world, outside our company. But we can see that the movement has started already, and people are proud to share their experiences and to also have the opportunity that they haven't had before. And we can already now see that, of course, we are tracking. We can see that we have fathers in China, in Malaysia, in the US that are now daring to take up this parental leave. And we have also said that we would like to go public with our data later on when we have more figures and data in place, because that is one thing that I found when I tried to benchmark, that companies are talking about their great family leave policies, but they don't go into detail. They don't share that publicly.
You share a lot. Why?
Yes. And I think that also is important from an employer branding perspective, and also sharing what we stand for as a company.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Katarina. We'll continue talking at the coming seminars too, I think. And
Yes.
Thank you for your case. And well, and also I'd just like to say that we would really want all employers to share their examples, and we're also taking our next step to build a place where we could share and develop.
Absolutely. And we, of course, hope that more companies and countries will follow our example.
Yeah. Thank you, Anna. You need to stop us.
Yes, there are so many questions. So it's not about stopping you, but it's about giving a chance to get responses to some of the questions that we have.
Of course.
I'll try to group them. They're all really, really good.
Anna, just one thing too. Maybe we could also answer some questions in written and share somewhere afterwards if you can't take all.
Yes, if we don't have, I have grouped them together, and if we don't have time or you have additional resources that maybe we can share by email when we share the recording later. One is about Volvo is a big company, as we've heard. What are the recommendations to smaller companies that might not have the same resources? I'm taking all of them at once. How do you deal with the HR department that just want to stick to the national legislation? I think in Sweden, the legislation is quite generous in terms of the days of leave, but in other countries, there are less so. And what are the arguments that you would give to those HR departments to really go beyond national legislation? We had one participant asking, how do you prove the return on investment, and maybe something on like the measurements? You said that you will come out public, and that's great. What are some of those KPIs that you've been using to really measure the return on investment? Then we have a few people that have been asking about the resistance. And I think you had a little bit of that in the beginning. So maybe sharing a little bit of your journey on overcoming resistance, particularly from HR, the legal department, but also the leaders and the higher management in the company. How do you overcome? What are the arguments that you give them? Somebody proposed that maybe having a resource group could help foster that. So any lessons from your side? And then there were a few, I think it links a little bit to the discussion on caring responsibility more broadly, but somebody was making the point that it's not only about new parents, it's also about older parents, that the children might be older and might still need caring, etc. There was one specific, and I'm not sure you'll have time to go into that, but is particular support to breastfeeding parents. So basically phasing back into work after parental leave, and how to deal with that. And finally, should parental leave be mandatory? There's a lot of
we'll fill a whole webinar with those answers. That would be great because these are rather complex areas, but I could take short and then we could elaborate more, and you can fill in, Katarina, too, on the things. I would start with smaller companies. In some ways, it's easier in smaller companies because you don't need to get all management boards and all decisions taken, connections to strategies and everything. So lots of things are possible to do in small companies, and lots don't cost money to gather parents on leave or to support working parents, discuss with them and see how you can work in flexible ways. Lots is possible in smaller companies. And we work with many smaller companies in countries like Kosovo, Albania, Moldova, and so on. HRs that need to stick to national legislation, that is connecting to what I just said. I mean, legislation is different in all countries, and you should absolutely not do something that goes against legislation, of course, but to go beyond, it needs to be a discussion about wins again. What do we win if we have a country where it's not even allowed to work in the flexible way we want? How can we also initiate a discussion with the public partners and government to see how we can solve it together? So that's.
But can I jump in there, Tina? I think from our perspective, we also made sure that we had a very clear steering directive that was a global directive that we say this is the steering and the guiding document for all our countries.
Yeah.
This is what we request or require.
Yeah.
To comply with the 24 weeks, where we go beyond the local legislation. Of course, there are things in the local legislation that you will have to comply with. However, where possible, you should comply with our Volvo Car policy. So we built the global one together in a global project team, and then of course they had to be adapted to the local situation, but we reviewed them together to also make sure we were quite firm on that we wouldn't want to see any sort of deviations that were not in line with the purpose. And also coming back to, yes, we had some early resistance, so it's really about getting the leaders on board. Because if you don't have the senior management and the CEO with you, it will be much more difficult. And this may take time. So maybe then you can do like we did, start with a pilot, start in one region or one country, learn from that and share the good experiences. I think that we would never have come to this global initiative if we didn't start smaller and learn from that and developed it further.
And that actually connects actually all the questions that you summarized there, Anna, because I mean, start smaller means that you don't need to do a global launch to get results. I mean, it's good to start small. You also have your smaller entities, of course, have more power than a small company.
Yeah.
But to start small is good. And you also said that the resistance and to involve CEO, that connects to the questions, Anna, about the arguments to prove ROI. The KPIs that could help HR to convince management and so on. The easiest is to look at attrition, I mean retention, to keep people when they become parents and build a family. The cost for losing them, for new recruitment, for onboarding, I mean, that is a high figure for most employers, and it's expensive to recruit. So that is an HR KPI, which is easy to work with. But yeah, Anna.
Also what you said before, I know we are running out of time, but flexibility is key. Not everyone maybe need to take all of it in one chunk. You can take 1 day a week off, or you can find solutions where you can share the work of those who are there. Easier, of course, in a white collar situation, but still, I mean, be creative.
And there are so many great examples, and we would like to share them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Anna. So how we would do?
I think we have a path set out for us that we should have another session on this and bring in some other companies, other examples into this conversation.
I would really like to find. I told Katarina I would like to find a father manager in Volvo Cars who was a bit skeptic before maybe and didn't really believe in it, and then took paternity leave, or a mother taking maternity and telling about the proofs, local example.
And also from the participants, if you have examples to share with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can write to us on wepswebs@unwomen.org for any examples and ideas for our next session on this topic. I think that the word that we saw winning in the first poll was empathy. And I think this is a word that has, not only in this context of parenting, but has also emerged as a top competence and skill during the COVID times.
Yes.
It is recurrently coming back, empathy, and we need to practice that, all of us. I think you also mentioned that we need role models. So I encourage all of our participants today to become role models. And with the recommendation from Katarina, let's just start with pilots. And I think it's easier to get through a pilot and start small than go all at once in a company. We learned that it's easier in smaller companies than in bigger ones, but also because you have smaller units, you can start in a smaller unit in a big company. And be creative and flexible. That's the key words of today. But I think before we close, I'd like to ask Diana to launch the final poll.
I would also say that if you have any examples or cases or stories that you have shared in LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever, connect with me in LinkedIn and Facebook too, and share those stories, because we gather them now. We gather them in a way so we can all get access to them easier together with you and agencies and others. So connect with both of us in LinkedIn and Facebook too. So we'll do it together. Thank you, Anna.
Excellent. Diana, if you could launch the final poll. And I hope that we'll be able to see you again in fall when we'll reconvene this conversation, and happy to get your inputs before then. Diana? Yes, I think you did a great job, Tina and Katarina. People are very satisfied. And of course, more information is needed. This is not the end of the conversation. We have this continuous, as mentioned in the opening. We've had those conversations since 2016. We'll continue to have them, and love to hear from the participants. Contact us, either Tina directly or to us at UN Women. And maybe even Katarina, you'll get some questions and some people that want to work for you.
Keep them coming.
So, yeah, no, so thank you.
Put your email addresses, Anna, on your page or somewhere to me, so people could write if they want to.
Yes.
And we also, of course, have lots of other examples in Pay Parental Leave. I just saw that in the chat. There are so many things to do that don't even cost so much money. So that's important.
Yes. And so please have a look at the resources, and we'll share the recording later on today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.